Okay, well, I'm going to call to order the special magistrate proceeding for the city of Daytona Beach dated March 1, 2024. This was a specially set hearing for the purpose of addressing I believe it's Daytona Beach Resort, LLC. We had two cases before us when I was here last. Which one are we here on now?
This would be the one that we started previously and would be, I'm not looking at the agenda properly. Clear on the agenda?
Damaged columns, dilapidated balcony,
Yes.
peeling
Yes.
paint, damaged, cracked, or broken concrete on exterior and interior of parking garage, dirt, and grime.
When we
Are
came
you
before
the only one who's going to be testifying on behalf of the city today?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, then let me just say it anyway. Will all representatives for the city of Daytona Beach who will be testifying at today's proceedings please stand and be sworn?
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Okay, are we just here in the parking garage right now?
Yes, sir.
And I know it's broader than that, but let me just refer to it as the parking garage versus the other case, which, as I recall, dealt with all sorts of pool issues and what have you.
That's probably a fair statement, Mr. McKelvin. I'm
Okay.
sorry, I'll allow,
I was going to say the same thing. That's fair but separate issue.
All right, this matter is here for the imposition of a fine. So that having been said, let me hear from our inspector first.
All right. In this specific case, what the city is now seeking is a plan to move forward on the repairs with a timeline, and then to give them sufficient time to accomplish that. So the city is not seeking a fine in this specific case as of yet. We'd like to hear their timetable and work with them on that.
All right, who is here on behalf of the respondent?
the one on this phone.
All right, will anybody aside from counsel who will be testifying on behalf either for or against or for the respondent, please be sworn by our secretary.
Yeah, I would like to make a statement, Your Honor. Not now, but when I'm allowed to.
Can you step forward to the mic, please, and say your name?
Harrison Merrill.
Tasha Herndon.
Thank you. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth? Thank you.
Okay, are you with the respondent as well? You're the condo association
Correct.
counsel.
Correct. Ann Wagner, counsel for the Condo Association.
Okay, very good. All right, for those folks here, on behalf of the respondent, Daytona Beach Resort LLC, I guess that's you two. You heard, and what? Do you have someone here to speak on your behalf?
Tina Garcia is here, will be speaking as well. I didn't know she might. Can you hear us, Tina?
Hi, are you able to hear me?
Can hear you now.
Thank you. Tina Garcia here on behalf of my client, Daytona Beach Resort LLC. As you can see clearly, we have client representatives who are there in person who will discuss some of the factual issues further. But I would just like to note our position in brief at the onset. We appreciate the opportunity for the magistrate to review the engineering reports and render a decision as to the property. If you recall at the last hearing, the issues got very technical and complicated, so you requested this special set hearing so that the parties would have an opportunity to show you the engineering reports and their plans for the repairs to be conducted to the structure. My clients have an engineering report, which they will be showing you today, and you will see that the engineer recommends the complete closure of the structure until it's properly shored and strengthened. Specifically, I believe the engineer stated that the garage floors and residential floors of the north tower structure should be vacated and the use terminated until such time as the structure may be shored and strengthened. It also notes some of the structural deficiencies in the building, including the floor slabs, which are said to be structurally deficient, with allowable punching shear stresses being exceeded by as much as 51% at the garage floors and 54% at the residential floors. It also notes that there's some post-tensioning that exceeds allowable levels and that there's inadequate mild reinforcing. The repairs that are needed to be conducted on this property exceed the scope of what was initially proposed by the city. My client believes that safety is of the utmost importance and has concerns about the structural integrity, and accordingly requests that the magistrate will withhold the use of the structure until the improvements are completed in accordance with its authority under Land Development Code, Article 10, Section 10.43A. We appreciate hearing that the city is not seeking a fine at this time, and we hope that the parties can move forward with a path towards resolution and ensuring the structural integrity of this property. We believe the life safety concerns are the most important issue and look forward to showing you the report today.
So the Reader's Digest version of that is what? What's wrong, what has to be fixed, and what has to be done to make it happen?
Correct. And my client today is there with the report. He will show it to you where the engineer goes through what's wrong, what needs to be fixed. And that for now, what we are seeking is a complete shutting down of the structure until that is implemented.
You're talking about the parking garage at this resort?
It's the parking garage, and I believe it extends to residential floors of the north tower as well.
So you're wanting to shut down the parking garage and you're wanting to shut down a residential floor?
Yes, of the north tower.
And are there residents on this floor?
Yeah, Chris, our client representative who's there can speak more as to which portions are being utilized now, and I would defer to him he'll speak to the specific facts as to what's been done, what has been closed, and what remains to be closed.
What, if anything, does that do for the timeline you're looking for? Anything at all? Or just generally tell you what the problem is?
May I be heard?
Sure.
Ms. Fakelja, I don't believe that the depth of this proceeding was to deal with all of that. The question you left us with when we left from the last proceeding, and these issues were brought up at the last proceeding, you left us with the question of them saying they weren't sure exactly what we were requiring them to do, because they spoke of things over and above what was being required
Now we're talking about the parking garage.
regarding the parking garage. And you ordered for city staff to go out with them, meet, and ensure that they were fully informed of what we were requiring them
Do
to
the
do.
inspection so nobody could claim they didn't know what it was that was having to be repaired.
That's correct. And as we speak to that, that's what our recommendation is related to.
So you're telling me that happened.
Yes.
Okay. And so as a result, what is the city's recommendation?
City's recommendation is very simple. We went over the different cracks and breaks in the garage. We're asking them to remediate those cracks. If they're saying that additional work needs to be done to do that, then that's what needs to be done. But we are simply showed them the cracks and breaks that need to be repaired, and we're asking that they are.
And just describe for me, if you will, the severity of the cracks and the repairs that you found that are in need of repair, so I can gauge how significant.
There is exposed rebar, cracked columns, some cracks that do extend from the floor of the column to the roof of the ceiling. But unfortunately, not being a structural engineer, not doing core samples, not doing any of that, I cannot tell you the severity.
Did I read somewhere that we're talking about a total of something like 300 columns?
I
50 per
do not.
floor on 6 floors. Did I see that somewhere?
Correct.
Correct. I got 1 out of 5 correct here. So just for my poor tired mind, so I can try to get my arms around this, we're talking about 300 columns that are, okay, and how many of those columns did we determine are in need of work?
we looked at least about 25% of the columns, I would say, had some sort of issue on them,
Okay.
some being very minor, some looking severe, but once again, severity is not something I unfortunately can determine.
And you mentioned a structural engineer. Has a structural engineer not already been out there to look at these things?
Theirs has, and they're free to present their findings as they feel. To my understanding, they're telling us that it needs significantly more work than just a patch job. And so we're asking them to lay out the timeline for that work.
Okay, and they're asking for a lot more than that. They're suggesting that the garage be closed down, and it sounds like parts of the residential floors be closed down. Is that what I heard?
That is what you heard. That would be outside of our scope and not something that we're recommending. If their engineers are saying they need to take those steps, then I would suggest that you always listen to your engineers, but I don't believe the city has.
Okay, all right, I understand. So, coming back over here now, what do your engineers have to say about the garage?
So in our understanding, part of this hearing was to present those reports. I know we didn't,
How long is this report?
it's highlighted, it would take a couple minutes to read over. There's two of them right here. One,
Okay.
the first one is from April 18th, 2022. This is after we've had other reports. This was when we had a follow-up report to what did we need to do in further testing. The concern was that one you'll see says shut everything down immediately. We shut the garage down to your question earlier. It's been shut down since May of 22 because of these issues. There was a follow-up report done by Falcon Group, which said to a less severe, it's still unsafe, but if you reduce the live loads, it could be safe, but it's if, and a lot of monitoring. We are very uncomfortable, especially knowing the issues are the same issues that you had in the disaster down in Miami.
What is punching, shear, stressing? What does that mean?
So my understanding, and just again from many conversations with the engineers, is it's the columns in the building which go from the ground level through the garage up through the condominium, because there's the garage. You mentioned you're familiar with the building, 6 stories of garage, and then above it 7 through 12 or 7 through 13 of building. And what it is the slab weight is too heavy, so it's pushing the column is pushing up through the slab, where if it goes to a certain level and breaks, those slabs fall and collapse, which was the issue in Surfside.
What residential floors is this engineering suggesting should be vacated?
7 through 14. So
What's
thir-
left?
So there's a separate tower that's 1 through 5 on the other side of the building.
Right,
That isn't part of this. It's
Right.
totally separate. They mentioned,
so everything above the garage.
yes, sir.
Okay, let me come back to you. So what is the relief the city is looking for? I've got one engineer saying, shut down the garage, remove the people, shut down the tower. I got another report saying, reduce the utilization of the garage, reduce the utilization of the tower. So all that having been said, what is the relief the city is looking for?
Relief the city is looking for is for them to come into compliance with the issues that we cited them for. We have been made aware of the engineering reports. That would be beyond the scope of a standard code enforcement proceeding. That would be something that would go to our building codes and basically asking for us to do some form of a condemnation. Our chief building official has made those reviews. They're currently in arbitration because they have differences of opinion on what those reports are saying or the way they should be interpreted.
Slow down. The only arbitration I'm aware of so far is all over money. Is there another arbitration over the means of remediating the property?
It's responsibility, and the concern is that this has gone on almost 5 years now, and the deferred maintenance keeps getting worse and worse. That's our concern, is that the issue's not getting better, it continues to get worse.
Okay, but my point is the court, I presume, has satisfied itself that it has jurisdiction over the issue of not only the money involved, but also the contractual obligations between these parties when it comes to when, how, and why to remediate? Okay, so you just want them in compliance.
That's correct.
They're asking, what does that mean as far as we're concerned when it talks about coming into compliance? They are apparently armed with a couple engineering reports that say god-awful choices. Okay, so what constitutes compliance as far as the city is concerned?
As far as the city's concerned, it's what was been expressed by the inspector as it relates to those code violations. I'll leave it at
Okay,
Basically, we're requesting that they fix the cracks and breaks in the columns in the garage, and of course also the peeling paint issues. And now, they're saying to remediate those issues is going to take structural work, and if that's what it takes, then they're saying that's what it takes. We're just saying repair it. They're saying in order to repair it, this is what we need to do. I said, okay. And we're asking for the plan that they have with milestones and dates to get those repairs done.
And if I can touch on that, we have the plan. Natasha and her team spend a lot of time working with the engineers, with the contract. We're at that point. We have what it needs to be fixed.
have you shared the plan with the city?
I believe so.
But
Yes.
we're looking for dates of when they're going to start. That's our important thing. They're not providing their start dates
Okay.
or their end dates.
What have they presented you with, some kind of a construction schedule?
Yeah, so basic of how long it would take, but not a very general sense of your idea, but not, once again, what we're looking for is when is your start date and what are those milestone dates we can expect along the way to inspect to see that you guys are making progress.
And that's where we're stuck with the arbitration, with the responsibility issue that's been going on for years. But our concern is if it's our building and we were in control like any other building that we own, this thing would be shut down until it's fixed. The problem here is you got a piece that we own that shut down. You got a piece that the condominium owns. They chose not to shut down. And if it's being fixed, it solves the issue. But we're only talking about the garage. The garage is the only piece we've been able to get reports and all the plan, the structure, the engineering drawings to do the construction. This has to be done. It's the same thing. The columns go all the way up. So it's got to be done together with the garage and the tower. That's where this issue lies, where it just continues on, drags on. But we're 3 years from knowing this stuff. And the concern is it being open and operating while we're disputing the responsibility is a very scary position to be in because of the safety issues. And it just continues on. I thought these issues were going to be done 2 years ago. I thought arbitration was supposed to be a quick process, and it's just dragged on. There's been emotion after emotion after emotion that just keeps delaying the hearings that I thought was supposed to be
this month, and now it looks like it's pushed back to next month or later. But that's our concern, is there's people in this building unaware of what's going
Somebody have a copy
on.
of this construction schedule that you keep talking about?
Have the, yeah, the engineer. Can Natasha bring that?
Sure. What am I looking at?
So this has some information,
Let me get the other 2 copies and make copies and
Yes, sir.
back to you.
Okay,
so I put together information as needed. This is the contract, from the contractor to do the repairs. The structural engineer identified approximately 6 new columns that have structural issues. In fact, in 2020, the same engineer that's doing the balcony work said hairline cracks and things that we pointed out in our inspection. So this is the contractor's repair plan for the punch shear issue. It's taken months to get to this point because of the extensive amount of modeling that was done, condition assessment reports. They've had to revise the plan 2 times before it was signed and sealed by the engineer, and I've got all of those drafts in there for you. There's, keep flipping through if you want to see the actual final design that was submitted by Falcon Group. Falcon Group's been updating the city. Oh, thank you. Falcon Group's been updating the city as you go along, every time sending notices. That's the final signed and sealed, and I have larger copies, of course. It goes through the analysis. It includes all the columns. In fact, the hairline fractures
okay,
and cracks.
is this going to give me a nice little step-by-step timeline of the
I
work
believe
to
on
be
page
done?
2, they put milestones. So if I believe here, there's milestones that are accomplished. Once this is achieved, the next step is started. And it goes along with the funding.
And it's about 2 months per floor, correct?
Yes, the plan would be for them to start on the lower level, shore repair columns, and then continue to the upper levels. There's more damage on the north side than the south. The contractor has been out since in the last 2 weeks, and again confirmed that the repairs that have been requested by the city are part of this project. It's step 1 of a 3-phase project that was put together in, I have that binder, in 2022, recommended by United Engineering Consultants, that said, first do
The
this.
estimated project duration is 12 months. Where are we on permit fees, engineering, and architectural fees?
So we've received the signed and sealed design plans. That was, the bid set was put together from those, and he submitted them. And we're at the point now where the signed and sealed plans with the contractor can submit for permitting once he receives the funding for the deposit.
So we get money to the contractor. Contractor takes his plans to the city.
Yes,
Hopefully, city gives him a permit.
yes.
Project's gonna take a year. Seems to be broken down into 20 columns at a time.
Yep, phase
Total of
1.
60 columns. How long is each phase expected to last?
He didn't break down
Because it's
when
only
you're
broken
saying.
down by dollars.
Oh,
instead of-
so that is phase 1 of then the additional things, if you'd like to see in the building condition assessment report.
Well, I'm looking at after 20 columns have been repaired and capitals installed, I don't know what that means, there's an amount due. So we're talking about 60 columns as far as what you've handed me. Looks like
Yes.
it's 20, 40, 60. Okay. All I'm wondering, for his benefit, so I can start visioning some kind of a
Sure.
timeline or schedule here, is how long do they guesstimate it's going to take them to do each of these 20 column segments that they've broken this into?
I'd have to check with them, to be honest.
Well, it's 12 months, so I'm going to assume it's 4 months for every 20 columns.
Yep.
So until somebody screams otherwise,
Yep.
And that
I'm going to
doesn't,
assume
And that-
that's the case, so that we can translate this into what we're going to be doing here.
The next,
I'm going to be looking for permits. You're telling me you've got your plans. All you got to do is submit them with probably $200,000, and then off goes your engineer to get a permit. And once you get that permit, you're expecting 20 columns to be done about 4 months later. Am I reading that correctly?
On the punch share issue, the other of the United Engineering 2022 Building Condition Assessment Report says that there is additional phases that need to be done: concrete and post-tension cable repairs, traffic deck coating and joint sealant, and then the final property ops for painting and such. So
When does that work take place?
so prior
That's
to
something-
any,
I assume it's something that follows this.
It would be, yes, it would be
Yes.
after that.
after that.
Does
but
it
the-
add to it, or is it done contemporaneously with some of this?
It would have to, we could check, but my understanding is have to be done after because we can't have all the machinery
Right.
in the
That's
garage
fine.
until.
And do we have
the
any
stuff's
estimate as
done.
to how much time that's expected to take?
I would assume that altogether wouldn't take more than about 3 months unless you're talking about, I would think 3 months, but
And
that's just a.
repeat that
yeah.
little laundry list of tasks again that they're doing. I heard painting, I heard something about cables.
Yes, so you've got the puncture shearing issue, which is the big issue, and this is just for the garage. Part of the problem is there's nothing, to our knowledge, being done above it, so it doesn't solve the safety issue, but it's puncture shearing, and they take care of anything on those columns, they'll take care of. They'll be repainting around it. They can fix any small cracks or anything in the slab around where that is. And then the second phase, the main pieces of it would be the waterproofing to prevent more water intrusion into the slabs and any other
Sounds like
cosmetic
it's all
fix.
critical to what you're looking for before this job is done.
That's what they're telling me.
Yep. The garage bid set that I just placed for you was produced in April of 2022. That binder is from United Engineering. It was the overall garage bid set to be sent out to contractors. It was prepared prior to receiving this engineering modeling study that said there's a punch shear issue. So outside of punch shear issue, they're the other three things that we just spoke to breaking down. Concrete and post-tension cable repairs, traffic deck coating and joint sealant, and then the painting, property ops, lighting, electrical, plumbing. So step one is punch shear per the engineers.
Okay, all right. Well, it sounds like we've got, albeit perhaps a little rough, we've got the elements of the work to be done and a guesstimate as to the time frame. We even have an estimate as to cost and what have you. That's all well and good. So
Cost for punch shear.
that's all you're looking for, isn't it?
Well, I want to know when they're going to start. That's what I'm looking for.
Understand that part.
But yes, if they completed all that work, that would satisfy us
All right. Now,
and the city.
I don't know that it's any of my business, but I guess I'm going to come back over here. And what are you going to tell me now? You can't do any of that until the garage is emptied and the towers are emptied? And
No,
tower's
the
emptied?
garage is empty. We own the garage. We would not put a car in there until it's fixed
Got it.
because there's the risk, and we're not going to take that
What else are
risk.
you needing to enable your contractor to do this work?
The arbitration ruling of responsibility,
Well, I
because
can't
for,
help you with that.
well, I understand and totally understand, but we can't do something that's, don't want to get into that, but we're talking millions of dollars to fix this. We're not in a position where we could fix it for the use of 318 unit owners to hope that there's not money to fix that. There's not $2 million. Every time for the last 30 years this building's been operated, any structural issues, any issues have been out of the reserve account. But the reserve account hasn't been funded for 5 years, wherein lies the problem, which goes back to the contempt ruling from a year and a half ago, which I know is not in your purview, but that's the problem. We're at a point where we can't do anything other than say we're going to keep the garage safe as closed. No live load is a safe garage. That's closed. But what's above it, there is a live load, and it has the same issue. That's where we're concerned.
Mr. McKelvin, I'm sorry, may I interject, please?
Sure.
Ms. Wagner, can you scooch over and speak to the mic, please,
Sure.
and announce your name?
This, Leanne Wagner, Counsel for the Condo Association. Again, to reiterate what Mr. Jackson said, this is outside the scope of what we were here for today. We were coming today to get a plan for the developer to address the city violations. That was it. Mr. Merrill referred to motion after motion after motion being filed. There's already been an arbitration ruling that the developer is responsible for the parking garage. They're now challenging it from a different angle with a new motion. So there has been a ruling that they are responsible. The owners for this association have been waiting years for these issues to be addressed. The developer has now admitted that there's a phase one that deals with the city's concerns. That could have been completed, frankly, it sounds like 2 years ago, 3 years ago. So we ask, Your Honor, that you please impose whatever you can to make this start quickly, proceed quickly, and go to completion.
And if I may interject very briefly, my client did a great job of going through the history and where we're at with everything. But I'd like to remind the special magistrate that it is not simply the developer who is named here as a party as being responsible for these code violations. It is also the association because of the joint ownership issue. And at the last hearing, you indicated that any fines assessed or any plans in action would be against both the developer and the association together, because that is how the city has postured the case. It sounded like the association attorney was trying to shift everything to the developer, and I just wanted to note for the record that that is not how this is postured here today. So a framework needs to be set up in place where, you know, the association's aware of it as well.
And the association does acknowledge that it is responsible for the balconies. And as Inspector Yates will tell you, our work is almost complete. Since being joined in this case in February of 2023, we have acted diligently, expediently, and our work is almost complete through no fault of the association, but rather delays in our vendors' work. That's why things are still ongoing. But we are very near to completion.
Okay, that's the first case?
Yes, sir.
No.
No.
It's part of this case.
That's part of this case. It's just, we initially had cited only the developer and then ultimately brought the association and as related specifically to the balcony. And while.
The balconies are part of the garage?
No, it's just all part, we just made it all one case because that was the only case at the time. And it seemed, at least at that time, we had the understanding that they had joint obligations or responsibilities that's related ultimately to the ultimate outcome, which could be fines against the.
Is the balconies the only part of this case that relates to the association?
When we cited it with that understanding. Is that correct? Yes.
So if the balconies are fixed, regardless of who fixes them, are the balconies in compliance?
Yes.
And it sounds like the balconies, the way this has all worked its way through, is a lot simpler portion than the rest of the Megillah that we're dealing with.
Yeah, we should see that permit finalized, I believe, by April, which is when you ordered them in compliance, specifically the balconies last time.
Okay. Well, then I suspect if the association does what it's supposed to do, and gets those balconies in compliance, then they will be dismissed from this, based on what you're telling me.
At your discretion, absolutely.
Okay. Now, but as it stands right now, both of these entities are respondents.
Yes, sir.
Okay. What keeps you from applying for permits within the next 30 days?
Deposit,
Okay, that it?
I believe so.
All right. As the city looked at your engineer's work, do we have any feel for where the city is on approval of a permit application?
No.
Or are we starting from scratch?
Correct. We reached out after the last one to the building official to understand their stance. We haven't heard back yet, so we don't know from the city standpoint on the engineering reports. The last we talked to them was after we shut the garage in May, and they were going to follow up when they got a opinion from the second engineer. That was the last time we had heard or spoken to the building official about the
Okay, if
safety.
everything went according to Hoyle, how long would we reasonably anticipate it would take for the city to approve a permit? And I understand that's half Ouija board,
Assuming everything's in line, it's major structural work, 4 to 6 weeks.
4 to 6 weeks. Okay, Mr. Jackson, if I could talk to you for a minute. I would assume in the ordinary course of things, giving something like this, that's probably a little bit more of an extended project, we would be looking to try to break it down into foreseeable segments. What I'm hearing would kind of indicate to me that perhaps what I should consider doing is giving this respondent until April 3rd to obtain a permit. Now, he's already told me, and I've already heard, it might take 4 to 6 weeks, so that may not happen. And if the city has questions or objections or things to be resolved, I will certainly be mindful of that. But I would like to make everybody do their best efforts to get a permit by April 3. I do not, given the fact that this is going to be a 12-month project, want to start projecting compliance dates. I want to see where we are at our meeting on April 9th, and then I would probably be inclined to go from there. At which point in time, hopefully, he has his permit. His contractor's talking about getting started, and we can be a little clearer about scheduling out the phases that are going to be called for during the course of construction. Now, is that about what y'all are looking for?
That is, Mr. McKelvey. This is not very different from what we've dealt with before historically with condos. We've had cases that have extended into very lengthy time periods. The biggest difference here is this ownership circumstance that they're dealing with. But as far as what we've done in the past, is you would ask for the permits to be sought, and then would do a series of progress reports until we get into a range of knowing when the project can be completed. The most important thing to us is that they're making good faith progress towards completion.
Okay. All right. Now, before I go making any decisions, does anybody else want to be heard on this matter?
I would, Your Honor.
Come on up. Yes, sir. If you would please state your name and be sworn.
Roger Kubley.
Okay, I'm sorry, sir. Can you make sure you speak into the mic?
Roger Kubley. I'm a owner of 710 450
Spell your last name.
KUBLY.
Roger. Raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth? Thank you.
Yes, sir.
They know full well that we are up against hard rock. We have no place to park. We have been parking in an adjacent park, paying almost $10,000 a month to park there because they won't let us park in the garage, even though the engineer study says we can park at least to 50%. They know that there's going to be a building built there. We're going to be evicted. We'll have no options for a place to park starting this summer. And we could have been parking in that garage for the last 2 years under this engineering report, at least at 50%. Now we have nowhere to go, and they know it, and they're pushing this to get an unlimited time frame to do this repair that's going to take forever and ever, and where are we going to go? We have absolutely no option, and they know that. much less throwing us out of our own homes above, which is totally an affront to our safety, our health. They're not really concerned about safety. They're really concerned about causing damage and hurt to us as the residents of this building.
Do you have any engineers or any other professionals who have said or suggested to you that there's any way to do it other than what their engineers propose?
You have, I believe you have the report there that the Falcon
Two
Group.
reports. One says empty the garage completely, one says knock it down to 50% and don't put any more than 4 residents in that.
Yeah,
units
when we're
above.
complying with that. Mhm.
Well, the thing about this, sir, and you're not going to find this very satisfying, but that's outside, that's over my pay grade. Now you're talking about a contractual obligation between the association and the owner. For example, he may very well find himself back here telling me, saying, Mr. Vicalja, I haven't done any of the stuff you asked me to because the association's objecting to this. The association got an injunction for this. The association got a restraining order for this. Those are matters between the association and the developer, which will impact their coming into compliance and may or may not keep them from getting fined. I don't know the answer to that yet, because I'm not there yet. But it's here before me now, and my job is to get the garage up to snuff and address the life safety issues. As you can see, there's lawyers all over the place over there, and they're all there to talk about who's going to be responsible for what. I suspect the developer may very well be in court, wherever, I don't know who the judge is, saying, Judge, you're going to have to remove these people before we can perform our obligations under the contract to remediate the common elements, or whatever it may be. I'm making stuff up, I don't know. The point is, there's a whole body of arguments to be had over there, which is why you're not going to be satisfied with what little I do. What I'm going to do is I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to adopt this. I'm going to hold you to it. You're going to do it, or I'm going to fine you. Now, I will tell you, if he's got a legitimate explanation for why he can't move forward for reasons that have to do with litigation land as opposed to construction, then that gentleman right there might very well say, Mr. Vicalja, you don't get to do anything right now, but sit and wait like everybody else. If, on the other hand, the answer is no, there's no reason for them not having done that, there's nothing that stops them from doing that, then that might very well be a different story. But I don't want to start speculating right now. I'm going to lay out my own game plan, and we're going to get from here to where we need to be. Now, I can't tell you it's going to be pretty along the way, but we're going to get there.
Thank you. I just wanted you to know the other side to it. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
David Marquis.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
I was on the board of directors when this whole thing started 2 to 3 years ago, or 2 years ago. I was involved with both engineering reports. I've spoken with both the engineers that did the reports. The first report was done strictly on computer modeling. There were no inspections, there was no testing, there was no, and that was based on a computer simulation of what the current building codes require. When this building was built, I believe, around 2000, it complied with all building codes and all building standards. Speaking with the engineer that did the report we hired, he actually did destructive testing, x-rays, and much further testing, and determined it was much less severe than the original report. Now, nothing has happened to the building since it was built. No defects, no damage. This is something that every building of this structural type that was built in around 2000 has the same issues. Modern building codes look at live loads and the puncture shear and the weight that a slab can hold, different than they did 20, 30 years ago. To err on the side of caution, sure, you can do things to make the columns a little bit bigger so it comes up with the current building codes. Although it's not required, this originally came before the city code violation for purely cosmetic issues. That was a couple years ago. Now, if they take care of the structural issues, those cosmetic issues will be repaired along the way. So that's great. But that's a much simpler problem than what they're talking about, the structural issues. The only thing before the city, the violations, are purely cosmetic issues, some cracks, some fallen concrete, exposed rebar. Now, if they do all the work to do for the garage, that it will take care of those, but it's going to be a much longer process. But as long as I'm perfectly fine as long as there's a process and milestones and progress continues. This has gone on for well over 2 years, and not a single thing has been done in those 2 years. Thank you.
Sure.
Carmine Rochapi, last name spelled Roccioppi.
Raise your right hand, sir. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do. Your Honor, I'm going to not try to be disrespectful at all to anyone in this court. This is like a father and a child, but we're going to get back to that. When you build the bridge that I just came over here to come to this beautiful courthouse, you could put airplane and a tank load on that and stop it on there, and it could be sitting there for 20 years. That's the way that tower is built. It is built to withstand over 10,000 pounds times whatever it's supposed to hold. And that's the same thing with your bridges, because you don't know if you're going to get into an invasion from alien forces, hypothetically, right? But you understand where I'm going. I could have tractor trailers with tank on top of tank on your bridges. They could sit there for 20 years. Your bridge isn't going to move. That's number one. Number two, I am so... My God, how does this go on for 5 years on a parking garage and a structure? Now the man over here is telling us that you want us to move. Or is he paying to turn around and take those poor people that are in that tower and put them in a hotel? Are they going to be lost for the revenue of this building? I can't even breathe due to the pools in the backyard are filled with mold, mosquitoes. I have infection, sinuses over here. I've been dying for over 10 days looking at those pools. Your Honor, the people here are fed up with the garbage. He said, she said, who's blaming who? My father, if I turn around and I yesed him to death like you're getting yesed to death, no disrespect, you spent 7 years on your education, whatever it is, you got elected into this position. I'm going to give you my father. If I told my father, 2 times, smacked in the head, kicked in the ass. Excuse my French. With that being said, that's what I feel is being taken on into this court. We're over here and we're playing bullshit games. Games with people's lives, people's housing, people's money. I don't play games. I'm straightforward, Your Honor. I tell you right to your face, I don't play no games with nobody. I don't disrespect anybody. But with that being said, we're all being disrespected. We're all being smacked. You're telling me it's raining when you're pissing on me, and this is going on for 5 years? I'm going to stop before I get into contempt of court. God bless you, Your Honor. You really need to, oh my God. Your Honor, I'll leave you with that. God bless you. He needs to be smacked like a child, pissing on his father's leg.
Anyway,
May I take the opportunity to...
what? What are you going to do? You got something to add? I
I
emphasize the word add.
if you would like me to or not. That's...
No, I don't.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay. One thing that is way beyond my purview is any ability whatsoever to fix the past. I can tell you that right now. What I can tell you is I can work in the present and I can do what I can to make things happen in the future. So, that having been said, I'm going to order the respondents, plural, since both respondents are still in this case, to have permits in hand by April 3, 2024 cutoff date. And it's my understanding that for the respondents to be able to do that, they're going to have to pay a sum of money to their contractor or engineer, whoever put all this together for you. And they will have to have submitted it for the city's approval, and the city will have approved it. Now, if due to circumstances beyond your control, you don't have that permit, then be prepared to explain that to me when we meet again on April 9th. Because on April 9th, I'm going to schedule a progress report on this matter and perhaps the determination of a compliance date. although I'm probably not going to set a compliance date, because when I get into things like this, I like to keep them on a pretty short leash. So, all that means is, I'm going to order the respondent to have permits by April 3, 2024, respondents, or be returned to the special magistrate for consideration of a fine of up to $1,000 per day thereafter. And I will also be scheduling a progress report for the respondents at our April 9, 2024 meeting, at which point in time, I hope to find out the permit's been issued. Someone's going to start talking about, we're getting ready to start construction, and that we'll have the first phase done within 4 months. That's what I'm hoping to hear. Because I'm pretty much planning on ordering that right now, unless I start seeing all sorts of Herculean reasons as to why that shouldn't happen.
Can I just clarify one thing when you say phase? Phase one is the year-long project in front of you. There are additional in that building condition assessment report. When we were talking 3 phases, that isn't even the start of the 3 phases in the building condition assessment, the garage assessment report. This is the pre-phase 1 that you're referring to. Just want to be abundantly clear, because you mentioned it a few times.
Well,
It doesn't-
I'm speaking about a garage right now.
Correct, so the garage
And-
timeline, and I can share the notes, because I know you guys will follow along the timeline.
Ma'am, could you speak into the
My
microphone?
apologies. I'd be happy to share my notes, I just am concerned that, I want to make sure that it's clear that as prior to certain board members that spoke today, in 2019, this started with balconies. I'm going to just skip through all my notes for everyone, benefit of the owners here as well too. It started with post-tension garage cabling project completed in 19. It then moved to the balcony. There was a structural condition survey done of the parking garage. In 2020, they mentioned here. So again, I do apologize, but I want to make sure in the notes here, in April of 22, the garage bid set had 3 phases to it. That was prior to the punch here knowledge coming about. So what you received from the contractor is addressing the column punch here, and then there is still concrete post-tension cable repairs, traffic deck coating and joint sealant, and painting, cosmetic, electrical,
We talked
plumbing.
about all this.
That is not in what's in front of you in 12 months. What's in
I
front
didn't
of you.
say it was.
Okay, because when you said phase 1, I didn't want to confuse the two.
Let me eliminate the word phase.
Okay, perfect.
And use the word garage,
Garage,
okay?
garage punch here first, followed by a series of other things that are required.
You're making up word salad right now. I
Okay.
don't know what you're saying. What I'm telling you, and what I'm telling you, is that I expect to see a permit to get the garage into compliance, whatever that entails, by April 3, 2024. And at our meeting on April 9, assuming you have that permit in hand, or you have satisfied me that it isn't in hand for reasons beyond your control, then we will talk about getting that permit in hand, and we're going to start establishing compliance dates for partial completion of the garage repairs and anything else that's called for to bring it into compliance. And that includes the end of the job stuff that you just described, which sounds like it's maybe more cosmetic than the rest of what we're dealing with, but I don't want to trivialize.
Right, thank you. I appreciate that.
Not a problem. So, the
Mr.
res-
Kelch, I'm sorry, I do have one question because you have ordered the respondents,
Yep.
plural, to obtain the permit.
Yep.
We anticipate that we will be in full compliance before the cutoff date, and we would ask to be dismissed from this case at the April 9th hearing. So I'm not certain how that will affect our.
you come into compliance, you stand there, you tell me you're in compliance. He says, yes, they are, I've inspected it. And then I say, fine, then the homeowners then the association rather, is in compliance and dismissed from any further involvement in this proceeding.
And would have no further obligation with respect to the work in the garage. At that point, we'd be out of it. So right now, we only need to
That
worry.
sounds like a really broad question that we could probably talk about for a long time, so I'm not going to discuss that one right now.
Thank you.
And I'm too old and wise to say yes to anything like that. Anything else?
One question I have is,
Yes, sir.
again, there's 2 pieces to this. I know the compliance piece, which for the city is one thing, But to fix this, it is the garage puncture shearing and the rooms puncture shearing. That is the, that
You
is,
and your lawyers deal with that. I can't help you with that.
so who,
That gets into issues beyond my purview. I'm here about a garage. That's all I care about right now. Now, I know the knee bone's connected to the thigh bone and the thigh bone's connected to the hip bone, but I'm here on a garage. And you're now talking about the mechanics of how you and an unhappy condominium association collaborate for the purpose of you getting your work done. I can't help you with that.
okay. Who do we go to for the safety piece? Because I feel like we're,
It seems to me she's right there. Well, she was there. Isn't that your attorney?
correct, but
Okay.
I'm talking about the safety of the building. Because again, we're part of it.
All I can tell you, and I'm not here to give advice, and I'm certainly not here to second guess what an attorney is doing, but if I were a condo owner in this day and age, and I've had some reasonable suspicion there was a hazard there that would not only hurt people, but subject me and God knows how many other people to horrific unspecified damages, then I guess I'd be banging on a judge's door until I got heard, until I got some sort of relief, or I would at least do what I'm telling you, you would have to do if you come here if you don't have that permit. Explain to somebody how it was beyond your control and you did everything humanly possible to make it happen.
Yes, sir.
That's all I can offer you. Anything else?
Nothing further from the city?
Okay, is that it for today's proceedings?
Yes, sir.
So everybody here who wanted to speak got an opportunity to speak? Very good. Good luck to everybody.
Thank you.
We're adjourned.